She didn't know it, but Veronica and Richard Sterling were using their vast network of connections to blacklist her. They saw her as a potential weakness in Julian's armor, a loose end to be tied up. She had heard about the new assistant at the City Center for the Arts and the mysterious anonymous donation that had created the position. A few well-placed phone calls and a bit of digging, and she discovered the truth. "Elara!" she sneered to her father. The same girl Julian was so curious about. The one we blacklisted. One bitter Tuesday, the wind tore through the streets, carrying with it a chill that seeped into her bones. Her lunch break was a precious half hour, a moment of reprieve. She held a steaming cup of instant noodles, the only hot meal she could afford, and found a small, sheltered alcove away from the biting wind. It was there, hunched in the shadow of a high-end boutique, that she saw him. Coincidence? Richard Sterling grunted, a ruthless financier who saw sentiment as a weakness. He's a patron of the arts. She's a low-level employee. He was an old man, his face a roadmap of hardship, etched with lines that spoke of a life lived on the fringes. His clothes, thin and threadbare, offered no defense against the cold. He was shivering, his gaze fixed on the ground, a silent plea in his posture. Elara's stomach, which had been rumbling with hunger moments before, suddenly felt a hollow pang of a different kind. Her own poverty was a constant, gnawing presence, but his was a stark, brutal display. No. Father. It's not a coincidence, Veronica insisted, her eyes narrowed. He's not just a patron. He's been spending time there, with her. He's a man who never shows emotion. Yet when he talks about that girl, his eyes, they change. Without a second thought, she knelt before him. He looked up, his eyes cloudy with age and a weariness that went beyond physical fatigue. Veronica's jealousy, a venomous, all-consuming thing, began to fester. She couldn't stand the idea that this simple girl, this charity case, could possess a part of Julian that she, with all her wealth and status, could not. She decided to destroy Elara once and for all, and in doing so, regain her control over Julian. "Please," she said softly, extending the cup of noodles. "It's all I have, but it's hot." She set her plan into motion, a multi-pronged assault on Elara's life and reputation. She hired a team of private investigators to dig up any dirt they could find on Elara's family. When they found none, she instructed them to fabricate it. Fake photos, doctored emails, and forged documents were created, painting a picture of Elara as a con artist, a gold digger preying on unsuspecting wealthy men. The old man stared at the offering, then at her face, searching for a hint of pity or condescension. Finding none, only a profound, simple empathy. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. He took the cup, his hands trembling. "Thank you, child," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Thank you." Julian, meanwhile, was preparing for the final battle. The hostile takeover, orchestrated by Richard Sterling, was coming to a head at the upcoming board meeting. He was gathering evidence of Richard's corporate malfeasance, a trail of fraudulent accounts and shady offshore deals. But he also had to protect Elara. He knew Veronica's vindictiveness. Elara stayed with him for a moment, making sure he was able to eat, and then, her heart a little lighter and a lot warmer, she returned to work. She was unaware that a pair of piercing sapphire blue eyes had watched the entire exchange from a window on the 30th floor of the Vance Tower, a man-made mountain of wealth that cast its shadow over everything. One evening, Elara was enjoying a simple dinner with Julian. He was different from anyone she'd ever met. He listened to her, truly listened, and he saw the person she was, not the person her difficult circumstances had made her. She felt herself falling for him, a quiet, cautious love. Julian Vance, CEO of the Vance Group, was not a man easily moved. His life was a sterile landscape of numbers, deals, and strategic maneuvers, betrayed in his youth by a close friend. He had built an impenetrable wall around his heart, believing that kindness was a weakness and compassion, a luxury he could not afford. His world was one of ruthless ambition, where trust was a liability and every relationship was transactional. But as he watched the girl share her meager lunch with a man of no consequence, the wall he had so carefully constructed began to show a hairline fracture. Her face, a study in genuine, uncalculating compassion, was seared into his memory. He didn't know her name, but in that moment, she was the most beautiful, most powerful person he had ever seen. The cold city suddenly felt a little warmer. He had to find her. But as they left the restaurant, a tabloid reporter, hired by Veronica, jumped out from behind a car. "Ilara Vance, gold digger, caught with billionaire Julian Vance. Is this your latest conquest?" Julian Vance was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. His orders were absolute, his resources limitless. But his quest to find the girl who had given away her noodles proved to be more complex than any corporate acquisition. He didn't want to simply demand her information. He wanted to understand her world without intruding upon it. The flash of the cameras blinded her. Ilara froze, her face a mask of shock and confusion. Julian, his face hardening into a mask of cold fury, shielded her, pulling her into a waiting car. He called his head of security, a former Special Forces operative named Marcus Thorne. "I need you to find someone for me. Marcus." No fanfare, no media, just information. "Julian, what was that?" she asked, her voice trembling. The city was a towering monument to ambition and indifference. Its glass skyscrapers, like silent giants, reflected a cold, steely sky that offered no warmth. In the canyon of concrete below, Ilara worked a thankless job at a coffee shop. Her dreams of becoming a graphic designer boxed up in a dusty apartment on the outskirts of town. Her life was a series of simple, repetitive gestures, grinding beans, frothing milk, and serving hurried professionals who saw her as little more than a part of the machine. He looked at her, his heart breaking. "I have something to tell you, Ilara. Something important." He described Ilara with an almost startling level of detail, the way her dark hair fell across her shoulders, the simple sincerity in her eyes, the worn-out sneakers she wore. Marcus, a man who had seen the worst of humanity, was taken aback by the unusual request. "A woman from a coffee shop?" he asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. But before he could, his phone rang. It was Marcus. "Julian, it's Leo. He's been taken." "They have him." "A woman who shared her only meal with a stranger," Julian corrected, his tone firm. "Find her!" Julian's world went silent. He knew who they were. Veronica had played her final, most desperate card. As Marcus began his discreet investigation, Julian's fiancée, Veronica Sterling, noticed a change in him. Veronica was a woman of impeccable taste and strategic ambition, the daughter of a rival CEO, a merger of empires in human form. She saw their engagement not as a union of love, but a calculated business decision. Her smile was always perfectly poised, but her eyes, when no one was looking, were sharp and calculating. Ilara's world shattered. She was a pawn in a game she didn't even know she was playing. Julian, the man she had come to trust, was a billionaire, a man of power and privilege, engaged to the ruthless Veronica Sterling. And now, her brother was missing. She found him staring out the window, his gaze distant. "Julian, darling, you seem distracted," she purred, her hand sliding across his expensive suit jacket. "The board meeting is in an hour. Are you still thinking about the Andros acquisition?" Julian, his face a storm of fury, confessed everything in the car. "I'm so sorry, Ilara. I saw you that day, with Arthur. Your kindness. It changed everything for me. I wanted to find you, to protect you. But I didn't know my curiosity would lead to this." Julian offered a tight smile. "Something like that, just a new project." He couldn't bring himself to talk about Ilara, a woman of simple kindness, to a woman who saw the world only in terms of profit and loss. Ilara listened, the shock giving way to a cold, hard anger. "So you've been playing with me. You've been watching me from your tower, and you brought this monster, this Veronica, into my life." Meanwhile, Ilara was navigating her own world, a world growing increasingly difficult. Her younger brother, Leo, had been diagnosed with a rare, expensive illness. The meager wages from the coffee shop barely covered their rent, let alone the burgeoning medical bills. Her boss, a surly man named Mr. Henderson, seemed to take pleasure in her suffering, piling on extra shifts with no pay increase. "Life is tough, Miss Ilara," he'd sneer. "It's a zero-sum game. You give, you lose." "No, Ilara, I didn't bring her. She was already there," he said, his voice laced with a pain she had never heard before. "She and her father have been trying to ruin me for years. They're trying to take over my company. And they saw you as a way to hurt me." The old man she had helped, a veteran named Arthur, was not a coincidence. He had once been a groundskeeper on the sprawling Vance estate, a loyal employee of Julian's father. After a scandal orchestrated by a rival company, Arthur had been let go, his pension lost in a financial reshuffling designed to hurt Julian's father. The rival company was Sterling Enterprises, run by Veronica's father, Richard Sterling. The web of fate was far more tangled than any of them could have imagined, but Ilara's trust was gone, replaced by a deep sense of betrayal. "I don't care about your company, Julian. My brother is gone." Marcus finally delivered his report. He had her name, Ilara Vance. A painful irony that the family name she bore was not the one of the billionaire who sought her address, and the devastating news about her brother. He also had a troubling piece of information. Veronica Sterling's father, Richard, was working on a hostile takeover of the Vance Group. Julian felt a cold dread. He was not just captivated by Ilara, he was now a silent protector. A man whose love was born of a single act of kindness. Now forced to save her from the very people he had let into his life, he knew that the kindness Ilara showed was a strength, and he was determined to prove it to the world. Julian's resolve hardened. "I will get him back, Ilara, and I will make them pay." Ilara's life, already a delicate balance of work and worry, began to unravel with a speed that left her breathless. The first sign was the sudden, unannounced closure of the small, independent pharmacy where she bought Leo's medication. A new, corporate pharmacy, owned by a subsidiary of Sterling Enterprises, had opened across the street, selling the same medication at a price she couldn't possibly afford. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Next, her boss, Mr. Henderson, called her into his office. "A complaint has been filed against you, Ilara," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Someone claims you were rude to a customer. We have a zero-tolerance policy. I'm afraid I have to let you go." Ilara's world tilted. "That's impossible. I've never been rude to anyone." She knew the claim was baseless, a flimsy lie meant to justify her dismissal. But she had no proof, no leverage. Mr. Henderson simply shrugged. A flicker of something in his eyes. Was it guilt or just professional indifference? She couldn't tell. Julian, Ilara, and Marcus drove to the warehouse, a grim, foreboding structure. Inside, they found Veronica and Richard Sterling, their faces a mixture of triumph and malice. Leo was there, tied to a chair, his face pale and frightened. She returned to her tiny apartment, the weight of the city pressing down on her. How could everything go wrong so fast? She had no job, and Leo's medicine was out of reach. Despair, a cold, heavy blanket, threatened to smother her. "Julian, what a surprise!" Veronica said, a twisted smile on her lips. "I was just having a chat with your little charity case here." Julian Vance, working from his office, felt a simmering rage. Marcus, his head of security, had uncovered the source of Ilara's troubles. The complaint at the coffee shop, the pharmacy's closure, all were orchestrated by Veronica and her father, Richard Sterling. They had seen Julian's quiet inquiries about Ilara as a potential threat to their meticulously planned merger. They had concluded she was a distraction, an easily disposable pawn in their high-stakes game. "Let him go, Veronica," Julian said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "The game is over." "They're trying to break her, Julian," Marcus said, his voice low. "They think if they make her life miserable enough, she'll disappear." "The game is just beginning," Richard Sterling countered. "You're at the board meeting, Julian. We have a majority vote. The company is ours." Julian slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing in the silent office. "No," he said, his voice a low growl. "They won't. I won't let them." "That's where you're wrong," Julian said, a cold smile on his face. "This entire conversation has been recorded. This kidnapping, it's all on tape." He decided to act, but not as the all-powerful CEO. He had to be a ghost, a guardian angel. He opened a new, secret bank account, depositing a significant sum of money. He then hired a new team, a group of quiet, unassuming professionals, to create a new online pharmacy with a single purpose: to provide free medication to those who couldn't afford it, under the guise of a philanthropic startup. The first recipient was, of course, Ilara's brother, Leo. A sudden sound came from the shadows. Arthur, the old man Ilara had helped, emerged. "And I'm a witness," he said, his voice shaky but firm. I saw what they did to this young man, and I'll testify to it all. He had been following Julian, a quiet, loyal shadow. Ever since Julian had found him and given him a job, Ilara received a plain brown package in the mail. Inside were 2 months' worth of Leo's medication, with a note that simply said, "A stranger's kindness should not go unrewarded." She stared at the note, her heart pounding. Who could have done this? Was it Arthur? The old man she had helped? She had no way of knowing, but a fragile thread of hope, almost broken, was suddenly repaired. Veronica's face went white with fury. "You can't do this!" she shrieked. "He's just an old man." Julian, watching from afar, allowed himself a small, private smile. The kindness he had witnessed was a beacon of light in a world of darkness, and he was determined to be the one to protect it. "He's a man of honor, Veronica. Something you'll never understand," Julian said, "just like Ilara." Ilara, with a renewed sense of purpose, began her search for a new job. She walked the city streets, submitting applications to every coffee shop and diner she could find. But everywhere she went, she was met with the same polite yet firm rejection. "We're sorry, Ilara, but your application has been flagged," one manager told her, a look of genuine regret on his face. "We can't tell you why. It's a directive from above." The police, alerted by Marcus, swarmed the warehouse. Richard and Veronica Sterling were arrested, their carefully constructed empire of lies and deceit crumbling around them. He immediately mobilized his team. Marcus, his head of security, traced the phone call that had lured Leo out of the apartment. It was a fake hospital alert, a cruel trick. They pinpointed the location to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Julian rushed to Ilara and Leo. He untied the boy, holding him close. "Ilara!" Her anger now replaced by a profound sense of relief. Looked at Julian. She saw not the billionaire, but the man who had risked everything for her. A man whose love had been born of a single act of kindness and had grown into a force of protection. One afternoon, in a small park, she saw a new job posting on a community board, part-time assistant at the City Center for the Arts. The pay was modest, but the work was exactly what she loved. She would be helping to curate local art exhibits, a step towards her dream of graphic design. She hesitated, knowing her chances were slim, but the anonymous package of medicine had given her courage. She decided to try. "I'm sorry, Julian," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I should have trusted you." The interview was with a kind, older woman named Mrs. Gable, the center's director. "Your resume is impressive, Ilara," she said, a warm smile on her face. "But a lot of doors have been closed to you recently, haven't they? I've been doing this for a long time. I know when someone is being unfairly targeted." He shook his head, his hand reaching out to touch her cheek. "I should have been honest from the start, but I had to protect you. And now you're safe." Ilara's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know why, Mrs. Gable. I've always tried to be a good person." Weeks passed. The city, once a symbol of cold indifference, felt different. The scandal of the Sterling family's corporate malfeasance and kidnapping plot rocked the city to its core. The Vance Group was saved, its reputation not only intact but enhanced by Julian's courageous stand. "Some people see kindness as a weakness, my dear," Mrs. I. Gable replied. "They're wrong. It's the greatest strength you can have. You're hired." Julian, no longer a prisoner of his past, was a changed man. The wall he had built around his heart was completely gone. He was in love, a deep, genuine love that had been forged in the fire of adversity. He proposed to Ilara, not with a diamond ring, but with a promise to build a life founded on honesty, kindness, and love. Ilara left the center, her head spinning with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. She didn't know that Mrs. Gable had received an anonymous phone call from Julian recommending Ilara. He had also funded the new position, all in secret. Ilara, now a partner in Julian's life and in his business, was no longer a struggling coffee shop girl. She had found her purpose, not just in her art, but in a new foundation they had created together, named the Arthur Foundation. Its mission was to help veterans and struggling families, a direct tribute to the old man who had started it all. Arthur, now living in a comfortable home, worked as a consultant for the foundation, his wisdom and life experience invaluable. As Ilara started her new job, her path finally crossed with Julian's. He frequented the City Center for the Arts, a place he had secretly patronized for years. a small refuge from the gilded cage of his corporate life. He saw her face alight with joy as she spoke to a group of children about a new art exhibit. He knew he couldn't reveal his true identity. Not yet. The danger was too great. Instead, he introduced himself as Julian, a patron of the arts. On the day of their wedding, Alara, dressed in a simple, elegant gown, walked down the aisle, her brother Leo, healthy and happy, at her side. She looked at Julian, his eyes filled with a love so profound it took her breath away. He was not just the billionaire who had fallen for her. He was the man who had seen her kindness and had fought to protect it. Their conversations were simple at first, about art, about the city, about the small moments of beauty they found in a world that often felt harsh and unyielding. Alara found herself drawn to him, to the quiet intensity in his eyes, to a kindness she sensed beneath his reserved exterior. Julian, for his part, was falling in love with the real Alara, the woman who was more than the simple act he had witnessed, a woman of resilience, intelligence, and unwavering spirit. Their life together was a testament to the power of that one small act. Alara's kindness had not just changed one person's life, it had changed two, and in doing so, had created a ripple effect that spread through the city, proving that even in the coldest, most indifferent of places, a single act of warmth can change the world. The city's skyscrapers still reflected the cold sky, but now a new kind of light shone from within. He learned about her brother, Leo, and her struggles. He listened, his heart aching with the knowledge of how he had inadvertently put her in harm's way. He wanted to tell her everything, but he knew he had to wait. The final confrontation with Veronica and Richard Sterling was coming, and he needed Alara to be safe. He needed her to be strong, not as a victim, but as a partner. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one, and while you're here, check out our other videos. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Veronica Sterling was a woman accustomed to control. Her world was a meticulously arranged chessboard, and she was the queen. Julian was her most valuable piece, and their engagement was the checkmate. But Alara's sudden appearance, and Julian's undeniable shift in attention, was a rogue knight, disrupting her perfect game.